Hello everybody, and welcome back to All the Mods 10. In the previous episode, we got started with just dire things, and we created an automation for most of the basic components in that mod. Because we're currently making our way towards the Philosopher's Fuel, we needed a dark tank or 16 buckets worth of Eclipse Ember fuel. And we needed a lot of the coal variants from this mod in order to actually get the dark ember. So in between episodes, I created a little semi-automation for the actual fluids. Basically, we just have a dropper set up with a simple fluid placer, as well as a advanced fluid collector. And this first one creates polymorphic fluid, which then gets sent into the second one here. This one creates the blaze ember fuel, I think that's... yeah, blaze ember fuel. And then we send that into the next chamber, which makes void flame fuel. And then finally that turns into dark ember over here. So we now have our dark tank that is full of 16 buckets of Eclipse Ember fuel. So we can go ahead and pick that up. And this can now be placed inside of our trophy room. It belongs right there. And yeah, we are now 6 out of 9 parts for the Philosopher's Fuel. Also, during the previous episode, I did actually auto-craft some Insanium Essence, and that has completed now finally. So we can go ahead and craft the 9 Insanium Coal that we needed to craft the Insanium Coal block. And that one goes right here in the middle. So there's only a few components left of the Philosopher's Fuel now. So we're going to need Insanite blocks from Extreme Reactors, and also a 64x magmatic generator. The magmatic generator shouldn't be too bad, however we are going to need a conduit for this. The Nautilus shells shouldn't be too hard to get. We can actually get these now that we're in Mystical Agriculture with Prismarine Essence and Fish Essence. And it looks like the Heart of the Sea shouldn't be too bad either. We'll just need Diamond Essence, Squid Essence, and an extra Nautilus shell. Not too bad. So I think that in today's episode, we're going to get into the Extreme Reactors mod. This is a mod all about generating a ton of power, similar to how we have been using the Power mod reactors. However, we're really not going to be using it to generate power, but rather just to basically turn our resources into Insanite. So if you're excited to get into Extreme Reactors, hit the like button and subscribe. It helps the channel out a ton and lets me know that you guys are interested in these videos. If you want to go one step further, why not consider becoming a channel member? It's the best way to support me directly, and you get access to all of these videos early. So I think before we get started with Extreme Reactors though, I do want to get all of these seeds crafted. That way we can actually have these running in the background and building up some more resources. So I think I'll start with the diamond seeds. These really aren't too bad. We'll just need 4 diamonds and 4 supremium essence. That shouldn't be too hard to get. We should have everything. Yeah, we're going to need 1024 inferium for that. For the prismarine seeds, we're going to need prismarine agglomeratio, which we're going to need some prismarine and prismarine crystals. And I'm realizing that I actually have not even found an ocean monument yet. So let's see here. There's one that's still searching. Status is not found. That's kind of interesting. Okay, so there's actually a mod that overhauls ocean monuments in this mod pack. So if you search for Young's ocean monument, that should actually take you to the correct area. So we're about 2,500 blocks away, so it'll take a while to get over there. But actually, I see this little tower here. And there's some prismarine here instead that we could probably take. Now, I'm curious. I don't think that these can actually be broken down. Let's see. I guess we could run this through the crusher to get prismarine shards. Wonder if we can do the same for the lantern. And it doesn't quite matter because there's a couple of these here in the barrels. So yeah, definitely take a look through those. Oh, nice. I got a trident. By the way, I always forget that you can actually just fortune these sea lanterns, and that'll give you the crystals that you need. You need 8 in total for this recipe. So returning back home now, we can actually craft our prismarine agglomeratio, and we'll need 4 tertium essence for this. And now for the squid and fish seeds, it's a little bit more complicated because we actually need to fill these soul jars up with that specific type of monster. So for example, for the fish one, we're going to need some fish essence. We'll also need a solium seed base, which is pretty easy to craft. So I'm actually going to craft a soul extractor, which we'll get into in just a little bit here. I'm also going to add a recipe for these solium ingots just because it's getting a little bit repetitive having to manually craft these over and over. I'll do the same for these soul glass. So what the soul extractor will allow you to do is basically turn mob drops into the souls that we required. So I'll place a soul jar inside as well as our ink sacs. And that will actually begin to slowly process down. And you'll notice that one item produced 0.25 out of 6. Now there's also a more manual method of doing this. So if we hold a solium dagger and a soul jar in our offhand, and we kill an enemy such as this squid here, we can actually get a little bit of the essence if we're lucky. I guess it went into this one. I'm not entirely sure why. But there we go, we have a little bit more squid essence. And if we kill any fish, they will also produce fish essence. So we'll just have to run around and kill a few extra enemies here. Okay, so just a quick progress update, because I don't really want this part of the video to basically consume the entire video. I have 2 squid jars now, 3 fish jars. So I'm hoping the mob drops that we've gotten so far will actually help to finish off these jars. All right, we didn't quite get there with these squids. We're at 4.25 on this last jar, but I am hoping that this will fill up with the cod. This is the last one that we need for this. I think the math works out to about 24. Because we need 4 times 6, so yeah, that's 24. But while I wait for that to process, I'll go ahead and make my diamond seeds really quick here. There we go. And now we can produce infinite diamonds. And I'll do the same with the prismarine. Here we go. We needed tertium for this one, I believe. And there's our prismarine seeds. And it looks like this soul jar is filled with fish essence now. That's pretty good. So we're just missing a little bit of squid essence. But while we wait for that, we can get our fish seeds crafted as well. Unfortunately, that won't automatically bring into my hotbar, but that's all right. There we go. And this needed solium seed base. And that produces our fish seeds. Alright, so that should be all of the squid jars that we needed now. So we can get those down. And we need prudentium essence for this, as well as a solium seed base. And there's our squid seeds. So we can now get all of these planted down with some growth accelerators next to them. And now that we have all of these going, we can actually finally start with what I wanted to get started with today. And that is the Extreme Reactors mod. So this mod's actually going to allow us to build basically a custom reactor. And our goal, which we'll probably not get to today, but we'll try to get as close as we can, is to actually get into Insanite. So to get started with this mod, we're going to need uranium ingots as well as graphite bars. Now I've actually already been automatically processing uranium this entire time, so we have plenty of that. Just make sure that it goes in the inventory. We also have a little bit of graphite, but probably not as much as we need. But to get this, we just need to smelt down charcoal or coal. So I'll go ahead and add a recipe for that. And now I'll just request maybe 1,000 of these. I'm not entirely sure how many exactly we're going to need for this, but we can claim our rewards from that and continue on. I guess it needs us to at least get 16. That should be enough there. Here we go. So Extreme Reactors basically has 2 different basic reactors that we can build. We can build a basic reactor, or we can upgrade it into the reinforced version. I feel like there really isn't a point in building a basic reactor, as it's pretty easy to get right into the reinforced version. However, for these quests, we will need to at least get a few of these casings going. The reinforced versions do require the basic casings, but if I remember correctly, the controller and some of the other items don't require the basic version. So they wanted us to craft 4 of these reactor casing basic. We just need iron, graphite, and sand. So we get 4 of those going. And actually we need 5 of those because we need to turn 1 into a reactor glass. And that lets us complete that reward, and we get a few more reactor casings. We're also going to need a control rod and some fuel rods. This basically determines how much of the uranium's actually going to be used inside of the reactor, and it also kind of controls our burn rate. And we'll get into burn rates just a little bit later on because we're actually going to be wanting to take advantage of as many of these as possible. So we'll craft a reactor fuel rod as well as our reactor control rod, which just requires a piston. There we go. We'll also need some way to input and export items from the reactor, as well as export energy. So I'll make the reactor active forge energy power tap, as well as 2 of these reactor solid access ports, which is just going to require a few more casings here, and another piston. I should probably just make a stack of these. There we go. And we'll need 2 of these because they actually act as both input and output. Finally, we're going to need some way to actually interface with the reactor. Basically, this is how we can monitor how our reactor's doing, as well as turn it on and off. So here is our basic reactor controller. And that completes basically the first steps of creating the first reactor. So the questline does want us to create 21 reactor casings for this, and yeah, this is basically the smallest version of the reactor that we can actually build. We'll probably not build it. Let's see here, 2 more. Here we go. That should be 21 for the quest. Here we go, and expanding our reactor basically just tells us that we can basically build up our reactor in any way that we really want to. Alright, so I think I'm just gonna straight up just upgrade into the reinforced version. And by the way, a lot of these basic versions of the parts for the extreme reactors can actually just be converted back into reactor casings, and that can actually be used to make the reinforced reactor casings. And of course, I'm just going to be setting up a craft for all of these, just to make things a little bit easier, and so that we're getting the exact amount of ingredients that we're actually wanting. And so I think it's time for a brand new build here on the island up here. I think I'm going to build a little power station just behind the hotel in this little corner here. This is kind of where I've been planning to build this for quite a while. But yeah, we're finally getting around to building our first reactor. Alright, I actually decided to go really simple with this design, at least for now. And that's because I kind of want to design the building around the reactor, or reactors I should say, that will actually occupy this space. So the first reactor that I want to build in here is actually going to be pretty tall. I don't know exactly how tall this is. I probably should have checked actually. It's about 15 blocks tall, and it is a 5x5, so a 3x3 interior. And while I've been building, I've just been sort of crafting up a few components here. It's still working on a few things. I also need to calculate exactly how much reactor glass that we're going to need, as well as the fuel rods. Now, normally when you would do a extreme reactors reactor, you kind of want to maximize towards making it as fuel efficient as possible while producing as much energy as possible. However, that's not exactly what we're going to be doing here today. Instead, I kind of want this to be the exact opposite. I just wanted to basically make the reject fuel, the waste that's called cyanite, because we can actually turn cyanite into plutonium. And when we combine plutonium with yellorium, which we'll get into here in a little bit as well, we can actually make verderium, I think that's how you pronounce that, and that will produce rosinite, which eventually we can turn into insanite. So I think the best way to do this is to actually just use our exchanging gadget and exchange all of the dirt that's inside of the sort of the outer walls, the framing that we have already built up. And I know that I can do this multiple blocks at a time, but I just want to make sure that everything's in the proper place. We'll have to get to that one here in the corner. And now that we have our frame built out, we can begin to fill it in the walls. Now, I think I want the outer walls to just be the reactor casings, because we're not exactly going to be able to see inside of the ones that are up against the wall. And steel dust is definitely one of the items that's kind of holding us back here a little bit, because this does require mechanism, at least in the way that I'm building this up. We have to rely on the crusher, which is definitely not the fastest block, but it is getting the job done pretty well. So I think for this reactor, I basically want everything to happen on this side. This side is just kind of a decorative side, I would say. Just sort of as we walk in, that's what we see. Oh, right. I also need to remember to fill in the floor. So the top layer of your reactor is going to be a little bit different, unless you're doing the exact same thing I am. But basically, anywhere that you want a rod to sort of poke down, you need one of these reactor control rods on top. Of course, I'm just going to be filling this entire thing in with fuel rods. And doing the calculations, I'm going to need 117 reactor fuel rods for this. All right, and OBS actually ended up messing up my recordings there. So basically, I built up the reactor. I'm not entirely sure how far it was in the recording, but we have a wireless connector here from Extended AE, and we're just having the system pull uranium out into it, and then we're pulling cyanite back out into the system. And from here, I accidentally built the wrong machine. I built the fluidizer. We don't need the fluidizer yet. What we need is the reprocessor. And the reprocessor is going to require cyanite, so this process is going to take a while. So I think I want to actually, while I'm waiting for that to all process, I think I want to increase our buffer with the ender cell. Currently we have 10 billion. We should probably maybe double that. So this will have 400 million capacity. And we're actually short on clay for actually making these batteries, so I think I want to make some dirt seeds. And that should be everything to make our dirt seeds. And we'll just go ahead and add it to our system here, kind of haphazardly, at least for now. Also, I can look back into creating this magmatic generator. We're going to need 8 Nautilus shells. Hopefully we have everything we need. I actually forgot to place the prismarine essence inside. So that one's just a little bit shorter than the other ones are. And yeah, we're 2 Nautilus shells short here. But we can craft up our Heart of the Sea. And all of these magmatic generators actually require a lava bucket. So I'm wondering, oh yeah, we can actually use fire essence. I was thinking because there's another way that we can get lava pretty easily. With the ME Infinity lava cell. Oh, unfortunately, it requires vibranium, obtanium. It requires all of the endgame alloys, unfortunately. But we'll add this as a recipe anyway, and that should make things go by pretty quickly for this. And we can add a specific recipe for the regular magmatic generators as well. We already have recipes up to the obsidian generator. And the 8 times magmatic generators just require 8 of the regular magmatic generators and an echo shard. And then of course the 64 times requires 8 of the 8-time magmatic generators as well as the conduit. And there's our conduit, and that should be everything that we needed. We're missing 64 lava for some reason, which is definitely kind of weird because we have the crafting recipe that I just made. Huh. I think I'll disable substitutions on that recipe. Let's see if that can help. All right, I just have it auto crafting some lava buckets here. And now let's see if that'll actually work. There we go. Okay, so you just need to auto craft the lava buckets manually, which is, I'm realizing, counterintuitive. But that'll take a couple of minutes. And we're starting to do pretty good on cyanite. We definitely need a lot more than 16 though. So this process might take quite a while before we're actually able to build the reprocessor. So yeah, now that we have 18 cyanite, what we can actually do is create a bee for it. So we're gonna need, yeah, it looks like a block of cyanite. We need a radioactive bee. I think we already have these. I'm not entirely sure. I think, yeah, we do, because we made uranium or uraninite with it. Oh, but while I was waiting for OBS to catch up, I did actually manage to autocraft this 64 times magmatic generator. Nice. So we can go ahead and now place that inside of our trophy room here. I think that this one goes in the top right. No, it goes in the bottom in the middle, I think. Yep, bottom middle. So the last remaining item for the Philosopher's Fuel is the Insanite block. Nice. And I honestly should have led with that item as well because this process is going to take a while. Right, we made uraninite bees before, which I think required... I guess they don't require radioactive bees. I think it's just the same recipe. Okay, so we need Cree bees and iron bees. Not too bad. So I think we just need to place down, and there we go. That will actually produce the radioactive bees that we need. And for the cyanite bees, it doesn't say that they can't breed amongst themselves. So I'm just going to make 2 of these, I think. And then we should be able to breed up as many as we need. This episode so far has been a really sit around and wait for things to happen kind of episode. It's kind of nice though. It's kind of a chill day anyway, so definitely nice to have some time to do some other things as well. But we should have our... Oh, right, these go automatically into the system now. Let's find radioactive bee. There we go. We got 2 of them. And we can just place these inside of this little area here. We right click with the cyanite and that turns it into a cyanite bee. Let's get another cage. Get that inside there. Oops. And radioactive bee, cyanite. Here we go. Nice. So now we can actually place these back down inside and use some poppies and hopefully breed them. Did that work? It's really hard to tell with these ones. F3B. I think they're stacked exactly together, so it's kind of hard to tell exactly. Here we go. So those guys should begin to breed now. Oh, unless they can't. Oh, that'd be unfortunate. Oh, don't run away, guys. Don't run away. Oh, it looks like these guys can't actually breed amongst themselves. It doesn't say that in the JEI, but yeah, they unfortunately can't. All right, but we'll get these guys inside of a brand new home anyway. And we need to get a cyanite block in the feeding slab. So with the combination of the bees and the reactor here, hopefully we'll get enough cyanite to actually make our reprocessor. All right, so the quest tells us that we need to craft 52 of the reprocessor casings. So I'll go ahead and get those started. And we'll probably need a few more for the other bits as well, but I'm not entirely sure. So the reprocessor is a 3x3x7 multi-block structure, and this is actually a little bit more specific than with the reactors because it has to be a certain way. Fortunately, the quest book does tell us exactly how it should look in the end. So the reprocessor is, like I said, a 3x3, and it needs to have a hollow point at the bottom and at the top. It also needs to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tall. We'll also need a reprocessor collector, and that actually goes at the bottom here is what it says. And the waste injector goes at the very top. The controller can be on any side, as well as the power port. This will actually require power. We'll also need an output port somewhere on here. I think I'll put it on this side. And now I just want to fill in the rest with some of the reprocessor glass. There we go. I'll need to pick that one back up. Oh, that's the wall. And here we go. That should, it looks like it did. It completely crafted. So on this side, we have our fluid injector port. So we just want to inject water into this. Let's just grab that from our system. The top is our waste injector. So this is our cyanite. There we go, cyanite. And then on this side is our reprocessor output. This is our plutonium. So this is the end product of what this reprocessor will be creating. And I'll just make sure to get some acceleration cards on this so that it doesn't go too slowly. But we can go ahead and turn this on, and you'll notice that it actually drops the cyanite down through it, and it'll actually end up creating plutonium. So now if I just pull this from my system, here we go, we have plutonium now. And kind of annoyingly, I didn't actually get this quest completed because I didn't have all of them in my inventory at a time, so I'll just need to craft a few more of these, which is kind of a waste of cyanite, but that's all right. All right, there we go. I had to pull the whole system down and craft, looked like 16 more of these, and that actually helped me finish the quest. And now we can actually complete this quest. Here we go, and we have plutonium now. And now that we're actually producing plutonium, what we can do is clear our export bus here and eject all of the fuel that is inside. For some reason we got yellorium from that. But we basically just want to pull out all of the fuel that's currently inside of the reactor. We can probably turn this off as well. And what we do is we can actually pull plutonium. I believe it's only the blocks that will work for this. We could try with the ingots as well. But if we pull plutonium blocks out into the reactor now, let's see here, we just need to put that inside of the system. It'll actually begin to fill up with plutonium now. And if we go ahead and turn that on, and I'll actually give this exporter a crafting card so that it can automatically request a plutonium block craft. And I'm realizing that these can actually be bred, actually. Let's grab our cyan. Where did that end up? So we can actually grab our cyanite bees and we can actually breed them because before they were actually still children, but now they should be fully grown. We should be able to now breed those. Probably have to let them out again. There we go. And get back here. There we go. Nice. Yeah, so we can actually breed up our cyanite bees as well, which is definitely going to be super handy. And doing this inside of the breeding chamber is probably going to be the fastest way of actually doing this. All right, and I just saw that we had a bucket of waste inside of the reactor, which means that we have our first magentite ingot. Nice. So magentite is the waste product of plutonium when you put it inside of the reactor. And this will actually be useful in producing radiculite. So now this is where our fluidizer actually comes in handy here. So I can go ahead and rebuild that really quick. And the quests don't really say how big that this should be, but I'm just crafting mine at a 5x5. So the first thing that we're going to want to actually make is liquid cyanite. So I'll just get an export bus here with cyanite here. And that will actually begin to create our liquid cyanite. And you can see it inside of there. It kind of looks like water, but I promise it's cyanite. So we'll just import this liquid cyanite into our system. Hopefully we have capacity for it. We might not actually. No, it looks like it's going inside of the system now. So now inside of our reprocessor controller, first off, I'm going to turn it off really quick. And we'll actually go to our export bus and we will actually have it export cyanite into the reprocessor here. So we'll go ahead and void the fluids and that should begin to fill up with cyanite. There we go, nice. And instead of importing cyanite into here, what we actually want is plutonium. So we'll place that here, and that will begin to reprocess that. Once we turn it back on, and that will produce ludicrite. Yeah, ludicrite. So we'll get that added to our import bus. The filters on the import bus aren't entirely necessary, so I might actually just leave that blank for now. But yeah, here we go. We have our first ludicrite ingot, and now we need to create radiculite. And we basically do that exact same process except with magentite and ludicrite ingots inside of the reprocessor. And by the way, all of these ingots can actually be made with bees, fortunately, so we don't have to rely on all of these processes. But you do need to actually go through and do these all to get the initial ingredients for it. So I take that back a little bit. Ludicrite can actually not be produced by bees, but the end result of it, which is radiculite, can actually be made with bees. So we basically are just going to need 18 ingots of radiculite, and that will get us to a point where we can just make an infinite amount of it. So in order to actually get plutonium from bees, we actually need to craft the plutonium bee spawn egg. Now, this is a process that we really haven't touched in this series yet, but basically what we're going to need to do is first craft the cyanite bee spawn egg. Basically, we just want to put an egg inside of the incubation chamber, and we need to use a honey treat with the type cyanide on it. And the way we actually get that is by using the upgrade Pokey Pokey gene sampler inside one of our beehives, and that will actually produce these gene samples. And there's a chance that it will actually produce one of the traits that is on the bee. The one that we want, of course, is the cyanide bee trait. And then inside of the baby incubator, you put the egg and the honey treat combined with the gene sample, and that produces the spawn egg. I did this just a little bit ago, and I think I had a 3% gene sample, and I put it inside of here, and it still worked. I think the only difference is that it just takes a little bit longer, but I could be wrong with that. So now what we need to do with this bee spawn egg is actually put it inside of the reprocessor. So I've got it already all set up for this process. All we need inside is water, and that produces our plutonium bee spawn egg. Here we go. Nice. Now, if you actually want the bee, like I do, we just go ahead and right click it on the ground, and that will produce the bee. And we can go ahead and grab that and get it in its own nest. And I think I might have just discovered a bug. When I when I put the honeycomb in my inventory, it just unlocked all of these different combs. Oh no. Alright, well, I'm gonna hit complete all and just see how many rewards we get. Oh no. I'm gonna have to go through and manually click them all. Shoot. That's kind of a fun bug though. And I'm realizing we're getting pretty late into the episode, so I just want to at least finish this quest right here. So we'll need to craft radiculite. And to do that, we're going to need 2 ludicrite ingots as well as some magentite. And we just combine those inside of the reprocessor, and that will produce our radiculite. So what we'll do is just start exporting our magentite into the fluidizer. That will actually begin to make magentite fluid, and that should end up in our system automatically. And I need to make one more ludicrite ingot, so we're going to need a couple of plutonium and some cyanite inside of our reprocessor. And we'll need to dump the water out of that again, and hopefully that will begin to fill up with cyanite and produce a few more of our ludicrite ingots. And now we need to export magentite from our system into the reprocessor. And we needed ludicrite in the export bus, and that should begin to create our radiculite. Oh right, I have all of the ingots inside of my inventory. I should go ahead and pull those out. We need 2 per craft. And there we go, radiculite. So if I go ahead and grab those, it should complete our quest. Nice. So we're extremely close to getting to the inanite quest now, and all we have to do after that is just craft rosinite, which makes insanite, which we can then craft into an insanite block, as that does require insanite ingots as well as an inanite block. But we're gonna have to wait until the next one because we're completely out of time for this episode. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll catch you next time. Peace.